failed induction and how that led to a C-section. So for context, I was planning to have a natural birth at a birth center. I wanted minimal intervention, and some things don't go to plan, so I want to kind of share what that looked like for me. And, let's get into it. Plug in your earphones and listen up. So, if you see me looking at my phone, it's because I have just some bullet points of the timeline, just so I don't get sidetracked. And essentially, this all happened exactly 2 weeks ago. So today's Tuesday. It happened 2 Tuesdays ago, where I first got admitted into the hospital. But it started out in the morning, where I went to my normal OB appointment or midwife appointment, and everything was normal. We went through the normal questions and answers and all that stuff. And then she took my vitals, and she noticed that my heart rate or my blood pressure wasn't where it should be. It was elevated at that point. And so I think she was at it was like 138 over 86 or something like that, where it's like not necessarily like a huge red flag, but enough to kind of raise a yellow flag and want to monitor. And she checked 2 more times after the initial check, and it stayed elevated. And ultimately, my husband and I thought it was a situational thing. There were some stressful things that happened a few days prior, and so we were assuming oh, my blood pressure's high because I'm still a little bit, stressed out from those previous events. But we ended up getting a blood pressure cuff from CVS, and we periodically took my blood pressure throughout the day. And essentially, it didn't really change even when we were at home, and even when I felt really relaxed. And we made sure that, I was sitting for 5 minutes before my feet were planted on the ground. I was relaxed, my body wasn't in any tense position, and I had eaten 30 minutes before. So there weren't any factors that should have really elevated my blood pressure, but it was still high. And we ended up checking it one last time as we were kind of getting ready to go to sleep, right around 11, or actually at that point it was probably 10 p.m. and it was really high, and I think at that point it was 160 over 90. And so in my gut I kind of felt like we texted our midwife, or actually we ended up calling our midwife and saying hey, this is the situation, we've been tracking the readings of it, and it's staying pretty high, and honestly I'm a little bit scared. I googled a few things, just seeing the average range for blood pressure and what would be healthy if in my context or in my situation where I'm pregnant at that point, and it just said hey, yeah, this is way too high. So we called my midwife, and she said, that is really elevated, you can keep tracking it, or if you feel like you need to go to the ER, you should go to the ER. And so internally I knew if we stepped foot in the ER, they would admit me and we would end up having our baby through an induction. And ultimately, I knew that, and I didn't like that as the reality because I really wanted to try to do a natural birth, but at the same time I didn't want to risk anything if it was a serious sign. And I kind of prayed that signs would show up, if there's an issue, that we would see it and have enough time to act accordingly. And I don't ever want to say oh, I want this to go away. It was more so let's catch it in time so that if it's an issue we can actually address it and we're not going to be in a high risk situation. So I'm really happy that happened and we caught it, but I did know that the second that we went into the ER, we would be kind of opting in for an induction. So anyways, after our call with our midwife, I told my husband, I said, like, I think we should. I don't want to, because I know that it's going to end up in an induction. Like, I prepped him for that too. Because I know, like, at that point I was 39 weeks and 1 day. Because it was exactly on my, like, week mark. So I had just turned 39 weeks on that Tuesday. So I prepped my husband and I told him, like, we're going to end up getting induced. I was going to say inducted. We're going to end up getting induced. But at the same time, and like I told him that, and he was like, oh, I really don't want that. I was like, I know. But like in my gut, I felt like it was the right choice. Just to make sure that my baby wasn't at risk and that I wasn't at risk. So I hopped in the shower. My husband grabbed our hospital bags and like put in the last minute things that we needed. Made sure that we had like chargers and all the things that we wanted to like go into labor with. Some changes of outfits or clothes, some baby clothes, things like that. And then I called up my parents because, well, first off, we called a dog spa, not a dog spa, a dog like boarding center. And I had previously gone into the center itself and asked them like, hey, in the case that I go into labor, can I last minute book my dog here? They said, yeah, if it's an emergency, that's fine. But what I didn't take into account was that if it's at 10 p.m. and they're closed, you can't call them and expect for them to pick up and say, yeah, it's an emergency. Like, of course, we'll take your dog. So we called them, went to voicemail, or actually didn't even go to voicemail. It just said, please call back during business hours, and then hung up. And then I was like, crap. And I called up my parents. They didn't pick up initially. And I was like, okay, well, we have a few more minutes. Like, I'm going to go shower. I'm going to take care of these things. Or maybe that was actually after I showered, but I think we were still packing up the hospital bags and getting the crate and everything. So I called up my parents. They didn't pick up initially. And I was like, hey, we still got to get our stuff like lined up for when we're ready to go. And then I called them back 15 minutes later. They did pick up the second time, and I told them, like, hey, we're going to go to the ER. My blood pressure is high. And I just want to get it checked out. We might be there overnight. It might be a few days. We're really not sure. But can you take Vera, our dog? And they said, yeah, of course. And luckily they live really close by. So, yeah, so they came over and then picked her up, got her crate, got all of the dog food and all that stuff. And then we were pretty much off to the hospital. And it was a 20-minute drive. And I was kind of just playing my music, trying to not stress out. But I think I was stressing out because it was like, we're about to have a baby. And I thought it would be like, okay, we're going to be admitted and then induced and I'll have a baby tomorrow. It did not turn out that way. But yeah, anyway, so I'm driving, kind of just trying to like stay zen. I was playing some music, very calm music. And then we go to the hospital. We walk over. At that point, I have like this pounding headache. And one thing about me is I never get headaches. Like even during my pregnancy, I never get headaches. That's just not a normal thing for me at all. And I had this pounding headache. And also like before, I had this weird vision thing like earlier in the day that I hadn't had before. And it was like a little alarming because I know that with preeclampsia, you can have like vision issues where you see like sparks or like static types of things, or like previously I was seeing these like translucent bubbles in my vision where it's like I would look and then they would kind of like seem like they were falling down in front of me wherever I would look. And it was just like, maybe I have vision sensitivity, and my midwife knew about that, and we were kind of just tracking it, making sure that it wasn't like too consistent, and that it was like, maybe it's hydration, maybe it's a vision sensitivity, we don't know. But we didn't ever want to label that as preeclampsia. But anyways, so like I have this pounding headache as we're walking into the ER, and then we go in, and then like the lady hands us the like check-in form, and I start to lose my vision where like I have a headache, and then I'm trying to fill out this piece of paper, and in the left part of my vision, at almost like the beginning of every word that I try to read, it's like this black dot that covers, like, it's like I have a loss of vision in a very specific spot, and it like covers only the first letter, first two letters that I'm trying to read. So I'm like holding the paper, trying to read it, like trying to be like, okay, it's asking for my first name. Okay, it's asking for my last name. And like, I end up telling my husband, like, baby, I can't read this. Like, my vision's going out right now. Like, I need to sit down. So I give it to him. He fills it out. Then I like go to the bathroom, and then like I read like one of their charts on the wall, and I still am having the vision thing where I can't read everything properly. It's really freaking me out at this point because I've never had that type of vision thing. Like, I've had those little dots. I've never had like big gaps in my vision ever, and I have great vision. So this was just odd. And I was like, okay, I feel like it is the right call for me to be here. And then we go in, and then I get my vitals taken inside the waiting room. And like, she's asking me questions. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to like answer them properly. But at this point, like, even just what I'm saying doesn't really make a ton of sense. Like, my vision's blurry. I have this pounding headache. What I'm saying is like I'm trying to piece together sentences, and like I end up saying things that are like I was trying to say like my vision looks like it's shooting stars. I ended up saying sharding, which was really funny in hindsight. It was the most embarrassing thing I have, like, and Carlos, like, poor Carlos, he thought I was joking while I'm like sitting down trying to answer these questions of like my symptoms. And I also felt bad for this lady because it's like I swear to God, I'm so sorry, you know. But anyways, so they admit me. They're like, yeah, like, let's go get your blood tests done. So I go back, they hold Carlos back. And essentially, like, they ask me my symptoms, I tell them. I'm sitting down, they have me change into a gown, and then I go over to a little, like, temporary room. One of those ones with, like, a drape that's between stuff. It's not even, like, a private room. And then they take my blood, and then they check my vitals. And essentially, they come back shortly after and say, yeah, so we're gonna admit you, and the safest thing that we can do is get you induced. I'm like, I knew it. So I meet with the first midwife, and she's like, so she was like a little bit stressed out, I think. I think she saw the gravity of the situation, and she was willing to share like the consequences of what would happen if we didn't get induced. And ultimately she told us that if it is preeclampsia or elevated blood pressure, or they were calling it gestational hypertension, they said if it's any of those things, I would be at a risk of organ failure, and my baby would be at a risk of his placenta detaching from my uterus, which would lead to him not getting enough oxygen and him dying because it wasn't addressed quick enough. And so with that, I was like, that's not the type of thing that you can just ignore, and I'm not willing to chance that. And so I felt like it would be a good idea to just move forward, get him here quickly. And it wasn't ideal, and it wasn't perfect, and it was like not what we planned for. Like, even telling my parents, like, I didn't want to tell them for the first 3 weeks just to create a bubble for me and my husband to adjust, especially if I did have a birth experience that was a little bit traumatic, just to create some space so that we had that privacy to adapt and then to let people in. Like, that was my plan. And so, like, that was our plan. So even just telling my parents when we asked them to take care of our dog while we were at the hospital, that wasn't part of the plan. But we were like, okay, we're just surrendering. Like, that's what you have to do. But anyways, the midwife said that, and we're like, okay, then yeah, let's get admitted. And like, my husband came in finally after like the blood tests were done, and after I talked to the midwife, and like I kind of updated him, and I cried a little bit, and it was like, this is what we have to do, and it's not ideal, but we'll do it. Excuse me. And then from there, we were taken back to the room that we stayed in while I was laboring, essentially. So the labor and delivery suite. And at that point, so we got to the ER at 11. At that point, it was probably like 12:30, I don't know, when we got officially like admitted. And then the nurses and midwives come in and they tell us the plan and they say, okay, so we're gonna try to induce you. And since you're a first-time mom, it's probably gonna take 2 to 4 days. They said 2 days and they were like, but it might take 4. Sometimes it takes 4. So we're like, okay, like in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, like, you know, my body's got it. Like I can get this baby up tomorrow. And essentially they check my cervix. I'm at 0 dilation and like not effaced at all. He's very high up. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's not ideal because like I'm 39 weeks at this point. And like sometimes when you're later in pregnancy, like your body just naturally starts to dilate. My body was like, no, thank you. I do not want to do that yet. Even though I was like having dates all the time and drinking raspberry leaf tea. And I had the Starbucks drink a few times and I was doing lunges and stretches and like the ball and all of those things. So it's like I was doing the right things to get my body in the right spot to like give birth and be prepared. But my cervix was very closed and was like, no, not yet. So that was a little discouraging, but I was like, okay, whatever. Like I'm not gonna have that high of expectations for like my body being ready today right now because this is just abnormal and I'm not going into labor naturally, so that's fair. Like that's okay. So ultimately the midwives tell me like what the plan's going to be and they say, okay, so we're going to do some cervix softener, then we're going to do another type of cervix softener, and then hopefully that jump starts contractions and then we'll put you on Pitocin and then you'll deliver. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we start the first thing of cervix softener. It's called Cervidil. So it's like this thin tampon that was inserted as medicine that's supposed to dilate your cervix. And that was in for 12 hours. And essentially like the first hour was very crampy. And it just like, from there it kind of like toned down a little bit. My baby just cried. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but he's real, which is crazy. But yeah, so cramping started and like it slowly became more noticeable. Like when it was first inserted, it hurt really bad. It was just not comfortable. I was like, don't love that. But then it became like more comfortable. Okay, sorry about that. My son was a little bit hungry, so we're gonna finish the video with him chilling out with us right here. So I was saying that they inserted the cervix softener, Cervidil, and that was in for 12 hours. And initially it was really uncomfortable when they inserted it, but it kind of like dialed down, and then slowly as it was starting to dilate me, it started to be a little bit more like intense period cramps. So by the time that they took it out, I was like cramping pretty hard. Nothing too crazy, because at that point, like when they took it out, I was 1 centimeter dilated, but it was just like noticeable, you know, like I could sleep through it, but it was still like I don't love feeling that way, you know. So yeah, and not even really like the worst period cramps that I've ever felt, but just kind of like uncomfortable enough to like want to have a like a hot pack on your stomach, you know. So anyways, 3 p.m. on the next day, July 22nd, because I was admitted on July 21st, Tuesday. So on Wednesday, the 22nd at 3 p.m., the 12-hour mark hit, and I was contracting every 5 to 7 minutes. and it felt like period cramps. At that point, I was 1 centimeter, 60% effaced. They took the Cervidil out and contractions stopped, which was like a little inconvenient. Because I'm like, if we made progress, why would we want the contractions to stop? Like, I want this to ramp up naturally to just like kickstart on its own. Like, ideally, Cervidil goes in, 12-hour markets, you take it out, contractions are there, contractions naturally start ramping up. That didn't happen. So I was like, okay, whatever. But the contractions stopped, and then in order to give my body like a little break, we waited a few hours before starting the second type of cervix softener. So at 5:30, they gave me the option between a Foley balloon, which is like a catheter, where it's inserted, and then it's supposed to like kind of squeeze together your cervix, so it manually dilates your cervix. Not really fun. Like it's two balloons that are filled with water on each side that slowly do this. Then you take it out and then you're dilated. So they said, that's going to be the fastest way to do this. Or we can give you something called Cytotec, which is a little pill that you put in your mouth and it dissolves. And then that can kind of slowly get you dilated. So I was like, well, that sounds a little less invasive than something manually squishing my cervix. So let's do option number 2. And they were like, okay, whatever. So essentially the goal was to get to 3 or 4 centimeters dilated with the Cervitec, and then from there to start Pitocin, and then naturally continue to dilate my cervix on through Pitocin, through contractions. So I was really crossing my fingers, hoping I didn't have to do the Foley balloon. And we tried that out, and we took the first dose, like right around 5:30, and then essentially we could take 6 doses, and each dose was able to be taken every 4 hours. So the first dose started at 5:30, the second one was 10, the third one was 2:30 a.m. the following day, the fourth was 6:30, and then the fifth was 10:30 the following day, and then the sixth was at 2 p.m. the following day. So it was like a longer wait time, but it seemed like a good option. So we went forward with that. And on the 23rd, which was Thursday at 8 a.m. So here's the thing, by this time, my expectations were kind of on the floor of this being a quick labor, because I had already spent that following day trying to dilate, and I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna come like tomorrow night. And then like I was continuing to take the Cervitec and I didn't feel anything, and I was like, well, what's going on? So anyways, we get to July 23rd, which is the Thursday. At 8:30 a.m. they checked my cervix again, and I was still at 1 centimeter dilated and 60% effaced. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, at that point I had taken 4 doses of the Cytotec, and no progress. And so I was like, my body is kind of resisting this. Like, I don't know what's up, but that doesn't seem right. So anyways, at 10:30 I took the last dosage of Cytotec and was hoping to make progress. I guess we only did 5 dosages, I don't know. But I took the last dosage of Cytotec, was hoping to make progress. At 2:30 p.m. on the 23rd, they checked my cervix, and again, they said that I was like a soft 2 centimeters dilated and 60 to 70% effaced. So they were kind of like latching onto a little bit of hope, like, ooh, we made a little bit of progress. Like, he's a little bit lower. And whatever. You'll see. I'll tell you guys more. At 4 p.m., we started Pitocin, And I think we were just starting it, like, here's the thing. Previously, they told me that we would start Pitocin at 3 centimeters dilated, because that's when, like, you can start contractions and they'll start, like, going on their own. But they saw 2 and they were like, maybe. So, anyways, at 4 p.m. we started Pitocin to see if it would help me progress. We started at 2 milliliters per hour, increased by 1 hour, or 1 milliliter per hour every 30 minutes to an hour. The monitor was picking up consistent contractions, but I wasn't feeling them. Then at 8:30 p.m. on the 23rd, Leo's heart rate dropped at 6 milliliters per hour of Pitocin. So we stopped it, had an IV flush, and then restarted at 3 milliliters per hour. It's kind of like backtracking. And, like, that's necessary if his heartbeat, like, if he's in distress. We can't do that. And something that they told me before was that contractions are good in moderation, but sometimes contractions get a little bit too intense, and that's when you need to, like, dial things back. And there's some medicine that they were planning to give me if the baby went into distress, to kind of, like, dial back contractions. So we had, like, a plan B just in case. But essentially what they told me is that each contraction is like dunking the baby underwater. Where it's like, if it's like for a minute, like, not actually, you wouldn't want to dunk a baby underwater for a minute, but it's like, okay, 1 contraction, that's doable, and then you have a break. And then a few minutes later, another contraction, and then you have a break. But if it's like contraction, the baby's not going to be okay. So they've kind of prepped me for that and said, like, ultimately, like, contractions are okay in moderation. If they get too intense or, like, too frequent, we need to cut back. So I was like, okay. So, anyways, that was at 8:30 p.m. on the 23rd. Now we're at 8:30 a.m. on the 24th. So that's Friday. Yeah, Friday. We got up to 17 milliliters per hour of Pitocin, but the contractions stayed super manageable. Like, I didn't really feel them. They were like period cramps, but it was like not very uncomfortable. It wasn't as uncomfortable as when I had the Cervidil inserted, like, right at the end. Because with the Cervidil at the end, I was like, ooh, like, this is not fun, you know? But with these, it was like, it's not that bad. Like, honestly, I kind of felt like, so there's like this whole camp or belief group that Pitocin is terrible and it makes contractions horrible and, like, it's excruciatingly painful. And at that point, so I was 2 centimeters dilated at this point. It's a bit of a spoiler. But I was. And I was kind of like, the contractions aren't that bad. So of course they're not going to be bad at 2 centimeters dilated. But little did I know that I was actually kind of wrong with how things would progress. Anyways, at 9:45 a.m., we had gotten up to the 17 milliliters, and we hadn't made any progress, so we stopped it and reset. So they ultimately, like, I believe they checked me. Yeah, I think they checked me. They were like, yeah, you're still at like a 1 or 2. And at that point I was like, why did I just get an entire bag of Pitocin? Like, why are you guys pumping me with drugs if it's not getting me anywhere? So it just felt very, like, stupid at that point, because this is Friday. I'd been there since Tuesday. So, anyways, we stopped the Pitocin. I showered, and we kind of got a break from the medicine overload. And the nurses told me, like, hey, this stuff doesn't seem like it's working, so our next best option is to do the Foley balloon. So I was like, I'm running out of options. Like, I'm not excited about it, but, like, let's do this. I just want to get out of here. Like, I should have had a baby 2 days ago. So, yeah. So we did the Foley balloon at 12 p.m. And then we restarted the Pitocin at 1 milliliter per hour. The Foley balloon being inserted was not fun at all. I did it with, like, no pain relief or, like, yeah, no pain relief. But I had my mom dropped off essential oils. And so I had like this little like essential oil that I was sniffing on my hand. And it felt so good, like just breathing that in. Sorry, I just tapped this. And it felt so nice just like breathing that in, just focusing on my breathing. My husband was right there. I was like, okay, like we can do this. And the smell was so good. Like it was like a Labor specific essential oil. And it was perfect. Like I still have it. And it's like, oh, I'm so glad I had that. Like, I just needed to be zen, you know? I needed to relax. So anyways, we had that inserted. It's fine. Didn't hurt as bad as I thought it was gonna hurt, but it was fine. And then we started Pitocin. Then at 3:25, the discomfort really kicked in with the Foley balloon. So, like, I had it inserted. It was uncomfortable, but I think it got really uncomfortable at like 3:30ish. And then by 5, contractions were noticeable and consistent, and I was having them every 5 minutes. And they were manageable, but like I couldn't really lay down. Oh, hi, Bubbles. Hi. Hi, good boy. He's just sleeping right now. He like was just nursing and then he puts himself to sleep. It's the cutest thing ever. But contractions were manageable, but the position really, really mattered. And like, it's weird because when I laid down, and I tried to lay down because they were like, try to sleep as much as you can, like especially in early labor, like you should get as much rest as you can and like try to keep your body relaxed. So I tried to lay down and I literally couldn't. Like I was like, it 10x'd the amount of discomfort that I was in. So I was like, nope, I'm sitting on the side of this bed, like I'm moving. And at that point, like I had like an IV in my arm. I had like a blood pressure cuff that was going off every 10 minutes that I had to be on. I had my finger thing that like was checking my heartbeat. And so it was like, it kind of feels like you're in like chains almost, like not officially, but it felt a little bit like, it was just very restrictive. I was like, how am I supposed to move and like work with my body when I'm like chained on this side and chained on this side? Like it's not like one side of inconvenience, it's like both sides, both arms are locked up. So, and like even going to the bathroom and even showering, like I had to like cover up the IV. It's terrible. Anyways, that's just like, there are bigger issues, but that was one of my little things of like, I hate this, like get me out of here. But anyways, so when I was laying down, I couldn't do it, so I sat on the side of the bed, and like I ended up sitting there for like probably 7 hours straight, because it was the only comfortable position. And like I was getting through contractions, and like I was very intentional, because the thing is, I was supposed to naturally labor, so I was already mentally in the spot of like, I gotta focus on my breath work, I gotta focus on my mindset, and like seeing every contraction as like progress towards meeting my baby. I gotta focus on like, my body is capable, I know how to do this, my body innately knows how to do this, my baby knows how to be born. I was trying to get into that mindset, like I was for the longest time, and I think that really helped me to like stay grounded and to get through it. Yeah. So anyways, sitting on the side of the bed, that was fine. And like we ended up like watching The Ultimatum, and like me and my husband, we were just hanging out, and it was just like, everything's fine. Like everything's fine. We're making progress. We're gonna meet our baby soon. Like, you know, we were feeling good. And like I was like, everything was just fine. And like we were door dashing, we were getting coffee, like the vibes were good. And I think that really helped. It was kind of like a little vacation, like not, yeah, and to see like the brighter side of things, it was kind of like a little vacation of like, we're not working, my husband's calling out of work and telling everybody like, hey, I'm about to be on paternity leave, like you guys gotta like pick up this stuff. And like it just felt like he was in it with me, and like he was like helping me breathe through contractions, and like we were doing like ohms together, like the frequency of like trying to like just neutralize the contractions. It was very bonding, it was very sweet. So anyways, sitting on the side of the bed, Pitocin was at 6 milliliters per hour. The goal was to get up to 10. At this point I was like 5 centimeters like dilated, I guess, or I was getting up to 5 centimeters dilated because that's what the Folly balloon's supposed to do. Then at 10 p.m. we removed the Folly balloon. I was at 5 centimeters dilated. The contractions were every 2 to 5 minutes, which was great. I was very excited. And then I was like trying to just move through them. So I was like, oh, also the other thing is like I had lost my mucus plug and it was like bloody. And so it was like stuff's happening, my cervix is dilating. And every time that I would like squat, I would like bleed. But anyways, that didn't stop me from doing lunges and stretches. My mom previously had brought like a yoga mat. So I had this yoga mat and we like covered it in like these like puppy pads to kind of not get blood all over them, all over the yoga pad or yoga mat. So I was doing like low stretches and I was like doing like hip mobility things and like the windshield wipers and like squats and like lunges and like I was doing like the butterflies. Like I was really trying to like get my body ready for this. So it was cool just getting to do that. But it was also a little weird because we kept having like nurses and like the people that like the nutrition people being like food service. And like just random people coming in to check and do different things and blood tests and vitals and all the things. So it felt like when I was doing my squat, the thing is you're not wearing underwear when you're in that like hospital gown. So like when I was doing squats, I was like, I don't know if this is really like smart to be this exposed while I'm like here, you know? Not that, I don't know, I guess it's like probably not that jarring to anybody who works there, but it was a little bit like I have to be careful to not like flash anybody who isn't about to see all that stuff. So anyways, I kind of like stretched for a little bit and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And then July 25th, that night, so yeah, they removed the Folly balloon at 10 p.m. And then later that night, we kept the Pitocin on and we got up to 16 milliliters at 5 centimeters dilated. And that was not fun, but it was okay. And it was like, hey, if we're making progress, we're good. And yeah, contractions were every 2 to 3 minutes. They lasted, this is when it got really intense. They lasted 1.5 to 2.5 minutes long. And my body was shaking like uncontrollably. And like I woke up and like I tried to sleep and then I woke up and my body was shaking and it's like, okay, like yeah, like I need to like, you know, get in a better position. And that entire night, pretty much I was sitting on the side of my bed and like whenever I wasn't having contractions, I was dozing off. Like my head would kind of like drop. My husband was like right behind me laying and kind of like helping me as I was like in the contractions. And he was just like doing like counter pressure and like doing the ohms with me and like breathing with me and like talking about me and saying like, I'm so proud of you, you're doing amazing, and like just helping me get through everything. But we were both like just dozing off in between contractions, and then it would be like, oh, like, you know, like, you know, I don't want to do those sounds right now, but that's how it was. And then yeah, and then we would have that break. And then it was kind of like, it felt like every single minute. And then we checked the monitor and it was like, I was having like 2 or 3 contractions back to back. And then like a minute or 2 minutes in between. Then 2 or 3 contractions back to back. And it was intense. Like at that point I was like, I gotta be making progress. And I was like, okay, like if I've made like a little progress, like even if I'm at like 6 or 7 centimeters dilated, like I'll be happy. Like we can get through this. But anyways, I think, hold on. Yeah, so we got up to 16 milliliters. And then we essentially we like asked them kind of early in the morning. I think this is before 8 a.m. But we asked them that morning. We were like, hey, can you guys like check me? Like, where are we at? Somebody checked me and I was still 5 centimeters dilated. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, excuse my language. Sorry, baby. But I was like, are you kidding me? And essentially at that point, I said, like, these contractions are really insane. Like, can we turn off the Pitocin? They were like, okay, yeah, like, we'll go see. We just have to get approval because we asked our nurse. They're like, we got to get approval from the midwife. So they like, kind of were, I don't know what the holdup was, but it felt like they were delaying. But they essentially, like, went to ask the midwife, came back and said, oh, we can cut it in half. So we got it down to 8 milliliters. And then at that point, I was like, well, like, why is the Pitocin still on? Like, it still is really intense. And, like, at that point, I was not having fun. Like, I kind of, like, mentally tapped out. I told Carlos, like, if I'm at 5 centimeters, like, I'm not doing this. Like, this is the stupidest thing in the world if I'm not making any progress. Like, the fact that I'm feeling this intensive contractions and I'm not making any progress, like, are you kidding me? And I've been here for the longest time. Like, I just mentally kind of broke. And, like, I previously, like, I had gone to the bathroom and I was like, I feel like I need to poop, but I can't poop. And I also feel like I need to throw up and I can't throw up. And, like, Carlos was there. I was telling Carlos that, like, I was like, I feel like I can't do it. And I felt like I had to poop and I felt like I had to throw up, but I couldn't do either of those things just because my body felt, like, extremely uncomfortable. Like, it was just not, I don't know, not working right. And, like, previously the midwife told us that, like, when you feel like you can't do it, when you feel like you have to poop, and when you feel like you have to throw up, those are all really good signs. So I'm like, okay, like, great. If it's a good sign, we're making progress. But as soon as she told us that we were still at 5 centimeters dilated, I, like, tapped out. I was so done, so tired. I was like, it's already Saturday. Like, why are we here? Like, this is way longer than what we anticipated. Our dog's at our parents' house. Like, people are texting me saying, like, hey, any progress? Hey, any progress? And I'm like, no, like, no progress. This is after, like, night after night. We were like, oh, the baby's gonna be born tonight at 11, tonight at 1:30. And it didn't happen. And it was just like, you know, like, it kind of, like, you have a threshold for that. And then you exceed, or you kind of get past the threshold. It's like, what are we doing? Like, why is this medicine not working? Why are these attempts not working? What is going on? So, essentially, I just felt very discouraged, and I told Carlos, like, this is so stupid. Like, screw this. Screw all this. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Big stretch. Anyways, so I made it to 8 a.m. and I felt hopeful that we were making progress. I was like, maybe she's gonna check me. You're so grunty. You're so grunty. I was like, maybe she's gonna check me and we're gonna make progress and this is all gonna be worth it. So I felt hopeful, but then they checked my cervix and I was at 5 centimeters dilated and 70% of phase. And it's like, are you kidding? Like, this has to be a joke. So at this point, I felt super discouraged and honestly scared because I was like, we're not here to just try it out, try to get induced, try to get a baby out of this. Like, we're here because there is some risk with where my blood pressure is, because at that point they were calling it gestational hypertension. Like, it's not preeclampsia, it's gestational hypertension, but it still has the same risk. So, like, I was at, like, a medium risk level, not high risk, because they would have transferred me over to the official doctors, but they kept me in, like, the nurse midwife section because I was medium risk. So at that point, I'm like, we've been here for how many days? Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days at that point. And the attempts to properly induce labor and make progress. Here's the thing, I was in labor, I just wasn't making progress. Those attempts had failed. Like, the only reason I got up to 5 centimeters was because of the Folly balloon that literally did that to my cervix. It wasn't my body working with everything. And with the Pitocin, like, I was contracting. My body was doing what it needs to do in order to dilate, and I was staying calm too. Like, it wasn't like I was resisting. I was like fully leaning into it, fully like indulging in the sensations, like keeping my mind clean, like, or clear, and like helping myself stay calm. Like, I was doing what I needed to, but my body was just resisting it. And I think he was also resisting it. So I was like, well, usually that shouldn't happen. But in our situation, this is all induced. So, like, who's to say that I can force my body to do anything? Like, I don't know if I can. So, at that point, yeah, super discouraged. I was kind of like, we gotta pivot. And, like, the midwives were coming in saying, like, okay, well, we can give you an epidural and we can just, like, ramp up the Pitocin again. Like, but it didn't work the first time or the second time. Like, it seems like my body is just going to continue to be suffering without any results. Like, I don't trust what we're doing up to this point. It doesn't seem like it's working very well. So I was really frustrated, to be honest. Even though the nurses were amazing, midwives were amazing, so sweet, so supportive, and it was great because we had a birth plan and it was like minimal intervention. Like, stay out of the room unless it's necessary for you to be in there. Like, the whole, like, birth process. Carlos was supposed to, like, cut the umbilical cord and get skin to skin and all of that stuff. So it was like, they were on board and they were very supportive. Which, like, I give them so many, like, points for that. Because I think hospitals are very, like, they see a birth plan like that and they're like, honestly, like, screw you guys, you know? Like, I feel like it tends to be a little bit more like my way or the highway at hospitals, which I get. They're trained in a specific way, and like, we're not the ideal clientele for most hospitals. But I think these people were very understanding, and they were like, yeah, like, you got it. Like, if you want to go in and do a natural birth, like, you got it. Like, we'll help you do that. And it was very sweet and very supportive. So I really appreciate that. But anyways, so I was really frustrated at that point, just like kind of frustrated in my own body, just like, why can't I do this? Like, I've been mentally training and preparing for this, like, getting in the mindset of, like, my mom had 4 natural births, like, my body should be able to do this. And so it felt very discouraging, like, why am I resisting so much? And I'm like, why is my baby resisting so much? Like, it's going to be in his best interest to get him out so he can be safe out here. Like, I can't promise his safety inside, but I can pretty close to promise his safety out here. So, just, yeah. Anyways, as soon as I heard that I wasn't making progress, the contractions became 10 times worse because I decided, like, I want a C-section. That is the only thing that can promise that my baby will be out here in a certain time frame. And that sounds so extreme. And I think, okay, for context, the midwives also said, like, hey, so you've been laboring for 4 days and the doctors are starting to ask why. And I'm like, shit, me too. Like, why isn't this working? And so that kind of got in my head of, like, if things don't start to progress, I'm going to end up having to be switched over and it's going to be a high-risk thing. And I'm going to end up having a C-section anyway. So anyways, like, I made it up in my mind, like, I want a C-section. I told Carlos this. He was like, baby, that's insane. Like, that's a little crazy. I don't know. Like, I think you can keep doing it. We can just, like, you can keep getting through it. He hated the idea of an epidural, and so did I. Just because, like, ultimately it's because I have scoliosis. I have, like, I think it's 13%. I don't know. And I was a little bit worried about, like, there's a risk of, like, being paralyzed with epidural, and I know the risk is small, but it was still something of, like, I think that would change my life for the worse. And I kind of just didn't want to, like, get an epidural without that, because that doesn't promise that the baby's going to be here. Promises that I don't feel discomfort as we're attempting to get my body to progress properly, but that doesn't promise that a baby would be there. And it would end up requiring a C-section if my body didn't progress. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to risk being paralyzed potentially for something that's not promising anything. So it's like, let me go straight to the extreme option. Like, let me get a C-section, because that means that I'm going to have a baby today. And I made this decision like right around 8 a.m. So I told my midwife after I told Carlos. And my midwife was like, okay, cool. Like, she was, or not my midwife at that point, it was my nurse, and her name was Sky. And like, we had gotten to know her because she was our night nurse. And she essentially had like told us previously that she was working in both the labor and delivery and the ER and the OR. So she like had her hands in everything, and she was just very interested in a lot of things and really like sweet and smart, and she liked to understand different like parts of medicine. So she was really cool. And like with this information, we were like, hey, so this is the route that we're planning to take. I think we should get a C-section just because I'm exhausted and it's already very likely that we're gonna end up getting a C-section. So let's go straight to that. I'm tired. My body's not working right, and I'm picking up those pieces. I'm picking up what my body's putting down. So let's get a C-section so that I can meet my baby today and we can be on the road to recovery. And she was like, okay, let's do it. So we asked her, like, hey, like, you've been in the OR before. Like, if your family members were getting a surgery done like this, who would you recommend to be their surgeon and like their team? She's like, you're in luck. They're starting at 9 a.m. The entire team that I would choose, they're starting at 9 a.m. So she told us about the surgeon who was on the schedule. She told us about the anesthesiologist who was on schedule. And we got to meet them in person. Like, they came in, introduced themselves, asked us if we had any questions, kind of walked us through the process. We signed some documents just saying, like, yes, we consent to this. We understand the risks. She walked us through those things too and told us, like, what to expect. And the schedule was clear. So at 8 a.m., she said, okay, they're going to be here at 9, which means that we can get you guys into prep right at 9, and you can get this operation and you'll have a baby this morning. Like, great. Like, there's a little bit of hope. And so at that point, like, we have the Pitocin turned off. I'm still contracting. It's a little bit more manageable. I have some hope. Like, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, anyways, these guys come in, and then they have like 2 emergency surgeries that they have to get to. So we end up like a brain surgery and then some other major surgery that like, they were not expecting. And like with the brain surgery, they were like, oh, it's a super quick surgery. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we'll get you in no time. So I'm still contracting, kind of like, dude, like, get me out of here. But brain surgery takes precedence. Like, I get it. But anyways, so yeah, during that time, our midwife comes in and says, like, are you sure? Like, I think if we keep, giving you Pitocin, I think you'll be able to have this baby. Or, like, we can give you an epidural and, like, you can get through it. Like, I don't want to, like, take any more chances on, like, it's a gamble as to, like, if my body's gonna progress and, like, if my baby's gonna be okay as we're attempting to do that. Like, that was ultimately the biggest thing of, like, I'm having these insane contractions, which means my baby is dealing with this insane contracting, I guess, this insane experience of, like, my body squeezing for minutes at a time, like, not normal stuff. So, yeah, so anyways, the 2 surgeries happened before I'm able to get in. My husband's packing up the bags. At this point, like, I'm still in a lot of discomfort. And, like, I'm kind of, like, making louder noises because it's like, why am I feeling contractions if I'm not even having this baby naturally or, like, through this way? Like, why is this happening? Like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, that I'm having contractions if I'm getting a C-section. Like, get me out of here. I was so done. And, like, we were watching the monitor and, like, it's like contraction. A midwife comes in, she starts doing counter pressure. It's really helpful. I'm like, oh, like, I'm like Like, I was not having it at this point. Like, they were, and I think partially it was the mindset of like they were less painful than when I had the Pitocin ramped up to 16 milliliters per hour. But just the mindset of like, why am I doing this if they're not progressing, just got to me. And I think I kind of just like tapped out mentally. Anyways, so that's all happening. We're prepping our bags and everything, like, because we're gonna get transferred to the postpartum room after my surgery. And then they take me in right at 11. We do the prep. They put in lidocaine, or actually right at 12, not 11. So at this point I had been contracting and like in active labor. No, I want to say in early and active labor for a full 24 hours. Because they gave me the medicine at 12 p.m. the previous day. Or they did the Folly balloon 12 p.m. the previous day, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah, at 12 p.m. the previous day, they did the Folly balloon. So I had been in early and active labor for that entire 24 hours. So right at 12, that's when they took me into the OR to get prepped. So they inserted the lidocaine. And honestly, like, so I went in with Sky. Cause apparently she's like a full service nurse. So she follows the client wherever, or the patient wherever they go. So it's like if you're in labor and delivery, she's with you there. If you end up getting transferred to the OR, she's with you right there. She was amazing and she was so sweet. And I think she was truly like an angel sent from above. But anyways, so she was there. And then my midwife was also there. And my midwife was the sweetest thing ever. And she like really wanted us to be able to have the birth that we wanted. And so she felt so discouraged when I ended up opting in for a C-section, because she was like, oh, like I really wanted them to have that. Like I wanted her to be empowered in that. And like she felt terrible. Her name was Stephanie. But she was in there with us, like monitoring. Sky was charting. But before that, like when they were prepping me, Sky was like holding my hands as I had the block in front of me and was like curling my back to get the lidocaine and to get the epidural poke or shot or whatever it was. Prick. I don't know what they call it. It was the thing where it's like, it's not the epidural where it stays inserted in you, like, and you're connected to a cord or whatever. It's where, like, they just do a shot, pretty much. So I got the lidocaine, got the epidural shot. And honestly, those did not hurt at all. Like, compared to what I was feeling before, like, it didn't hurt. I was just like, okay, yeah, like, that's there. Like, and they were like, you're like the calmest person we've ever experienced to like get this done. I'm like, thanks. That means a lot. Like, because yeah. And I was just very happy that I was finally gonna get to be done having contractions. And yeah, that, like, as soon as the lidocaine and the epidural shot went in, I started feeling relief. And sorry, I'm not really whispering anymore because this is story time for me. But I started feeling relief, and it was just like from there on out, it was a spa day. I'm not even kidding. Like, my C-section was the most tranquil part of the entire experience. I sound a little crazy saying that, but it truly was. Like, as soon as the epidural and lidocaine hit, like, my body just, I stopped feeling contractions entirely. My body started to tingle. They put these covers on my ankles or my calves to make sure that I wasn't gonna like have any blood clots, and it started like massaging my calves. It was really nice. And then like they put me on the OR table. Oh, sorry, bud. They put me on the OR table and then like put the sheet up, and then like put a blanket over me, and like it was, as soon as they put the blanket over me, my body was already like tingling. And I was like, did you guys just put a fishnet on me? They were like, no, that was a blanket. But it felt like a little like fishnet on me. I was like, I feel like a mermaid. But it's just very chill, and like the vibes were good. Like the surgeon, the anesthesiologist, Sky, the midwife, like they were all just talking like normal people. And like they asked if I wanted to play music. Well, I asked, I was like, do you guys ever play music in here? They were like, yeah, sometimes. Like, do you want us to play music? I was like, maybe. Like, what do you guys listen to? And like, we were just kind of like talking as they were like prepping and everything, and they were like testing to see if I had any feeling like below like my shoulders. And I was like, no, like I can like feel it, but I can't tell if that's like pokey or not. Like they were poking me. So that was cool that I couldn't feel it. But anyway, so like as they were doing all of that stuff, they had my husband come in. He like was pretty much just talking to me. He was like, are you doing okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. And like I told him, I was like, I feel like this is a spa day. Like this is so nice. And he was like, okay, like he was panicking at that point. The entire morning he was panicking, and that was really sad to see. Because he was like, a C-section's insane, and like you could die in that. Like I just want you to be okay. But it's like I'm gonna take my chances with the amount of discomfort I'm in right now. That's not funny, but it's a little funny. But anyways, so that all happened, and yeah, so Carlos was in there, and the operation happened, and it was like pretty short. It was like 10 minutes. And at the beginning I started talking, even though like previously I had heard that like you're not supposed to talk while you're getting a C-section done, because it makes like it kind of traps in more air bubbles. So I ended up like having like an air bubble in what felt like my shoulder and like my upper rib / lung. It was weird, just like kind of the next few days like getting that out. But I was like talking to my husband a little bit like in the beginning, and he was like, I think you gotta be quiet, you can't talk during this operation. I was like, okay, whatever. But anyways, so yeah, so he was in there, he was watching everything. Apparently he saw some of my insides. I don't know specifically what he saw. I asked him if he saw my organs, and he was like, kinda. I was like, okay. Or maybe he just saw like some of my skin, I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah, the operation was 10 minutes. Oh my gosh. And then like as soon as so like his amniotic sac was still intact when they got him, so they popped it to get him out. And as soon as like they popped him and like pulled him out, and he had this incredible cry that was so beautiful. And like you hear a newborn crying, it's like, okay, yeah, there's a generic baby cry, but his cry was like so clear and strong, and like a deep cry too for a baby. And he was like, oh, he was like the breath of life, and it was precious and so sweet just hearing it, and like knowing that he was okay, and like that he was healthy. Like you could tell by that cry that he was so healthy. It was like, okay, like my baby's good. And like Carlos like was right there, and he like kind of started crying too. And like I was like crying, and like I had my oxygen nose thing and everything. Like I was trying to like look over like while they were doing stuff and like cleaning the baby up. It's kind of hard, and like I was kind of like a little bit lightheaded, so it was hard to like pay attention to what he was doing. But it was just so beautiful hearing his like cry. I was like, wow, like he's alive and he's real. Like there's something about being pregnant and like not getting to see your baby until they're actually out. It's kind of hard to conceptualize that they're real. Like you can recognize like, oh, I'm pregnant, but trying to like picture a baby inside of there, and like trying to think about like what your baby looks like, it's difficult, you know. But like hearing it, it was like, he's real. It's crazy. And now he's right here, like in my arms, sleeping, and like he's the most perfect baby ever, like the sweetest little thing in the world. Yeah. So anyways, my husband got to cut his umbilical cord and do skin to skin while they were kind of piecing me back together. And that was really sweet. And my baby came out and he was 8 pounds, and they said he was 8 pounds 1 ounce, but our midwife weighed him shortly after and he was 8 pounds 14 ounces. So we don't know exactly what his weight was, but he was a big guy and like he was long. He's like 20, I think he was like 20.4 inches or something like that, which is pretty good. And okay, and the other thing is like when they brought him out, he was sunny side up, which means that his face was facing the wrong way. So if he did come out the natural way, his back would be to my back and his face would be to my pelvic range area, which means that his face would probably get pretty bruised up. And then they also said that he was really far into my back, so he was not in the optimal position to be, brought up forth. Like delivery would have been long and painful, and the midwife said that it would have probably ended up in a C-section anyway, like even if I fully got dilated. So I think like the whole decision to get a C-section was honestly like, I think it was a spiritual inkling. I think it was like a intuitive little like prompt of like, yeah, like this is gonna be better for you. And I like previously prayed that like the decisions we made would be the right decisions, whether we knew it or not, but like whether we understood why or not. And like that was kind of my prayer for the entire thing of like, God, like give us guidance and like guide our feet in the direction that you think is best, whether we understand why we're doing it or not. Like just help us, And like I kind of like leaned into that and like was trusting God with that. And that was like really reassuring, just knowing at the end of it that our midwife's like, yeah, you probably would have ended up having a C-section anyway based on his position, because he was up there and he was back, like he was not ready to come up. He was also in a funky yoga position, so I don't know how that would have worked out. So anyways, we got him. He was healthy, and like they did all of his like measurements and weight and umbilical cord and everything. Then they brought him over to me, and like he was crying and wailing, and then I kissed his cheek and he was silent. It was like he knew me. It was like, oh, my sweet baby. So anyways, he's perfect, and now we're home. And we stayed at the hospital for 3 days. No, 2 days after. And that was not fun, but we got through it. And now we're home, and we've been home for the past 10 days. He's 10 days old. And he is like the perfect little baby and like a little slice of heaven. And the newborn phase has been just so chill. Like I'm kind of waiting for that to change, and I'm waiting for the difficulty to hit, but it's like so far he is just easy and like a chill guy and like very simple and very easy to read. So yeah, like I feel like he's always been part of like our little family, and I'm really grateful for him. I'm so happy that he's here safely. So that is my birth story, and it didn't happen the way that we could have ever anticipated, but I think I'm really grateful for modern medicine and the support that we had during this. And I think initially I felt like it was a little bit traumatic. Now that I'm a little bit out of it, like a little bit further from it, like I'm really grateful for how it happened, because I got part of the labor experience, but I also trusted my intuition, and I think a C-section was the right choice for us. And now we're here, and he's healthy, and I'm healthy, and the incision's great, and I'm like recovering really well, and like we're just very grateful for the spot that we're in. So that's my birth story. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure sharing this with you, and I hope that it resonates, and I hope that
it gives somebody peace of mind that regardless of how it turns out, like, I'm wishing all of you guys the best with your birth story, and I hope that maybe this is going to help somebody feel a little bit more seen, or like they're not alone in this situation if they're going through something similar. So anyways, thanks for tuning in and for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye guys.